Hi, can you see me yet? Mercury is so retrograde. It says I'm live, it's lit. Hello, Patricia Angelin here, Alba Technique. Hello, everybody. We have just been having so many problems. Today, I'm trying to get onto my iPad so that I can look at the questions that we had for this week. I am, of course, Patricia Angelin, and this is All the Feels. We're supposed to be on Facebook Live this week, but Facebook was not letting us on for some unknown reason, so we decided to join you on Instagram. And there are our beautiful peonies and our lovely little tea lights. And I'm going to have to do this handheld, so it's going to be a little bit jerky, and I ask you to forgive me for that. Thank you so much. Okay, there I am, all with my cord and all hooked up, which I can't do if I don't handhold it. So we're here, and we're together. And what has this done to my feels? Given me some anxiety. Then it gave me some anger, because what was wrong with Facebook? Not letting us on. Oh, I was so mad at Facebook. Now that I'm breathing, and now that I see that you can see me, and now that I see that two very beloved persons have joined me, I'm going to breathe in through my nose and out through my mouth. Close my eyes for just one cycle of breath. Open my eyes on an imaginary horizon line, which is right about at the level of the lowest of the two candles. So that's where I'm looking at when I find the horizon line, a little above that. Breathe in, nose, mouth, which then told me, my mind, in my body, that I was really pretty crunched in the abdomen. So I'm sitting up. My skeleton is more up now. I better move my feet because they were really weirdly torqued. So now my feet are in the ground. My derriere is on the chair. I'm straightened up. I can see that you can see me. I've closed my eyes to release tension in the eyes. This is very much a how-to, people. And I breathe in through my nose. I breathe out through my mouth. Let me check and see whether my lips are very tight from that anger reaction that I had to Facebook. See? The upper lip and the lower lip both vibrated on my blubber lips, so we're good. All right, I'm going to get a little tense because of holding the phone, but that's all right. So we are at almost 20 after 5, and I do apologize to you for not being on time at 5 o'clock. So we'll do what we can. And we'll make it a 15-minute rather than a half an hour. I have two questions, and these two questions were asked after the fact from the Alba Technique Weekend Intensive, which I hold currently 3 times a year at the end of May on Memorial Day weekend, in October on Columbus Day weekend, Columbus Day / Indigenous Peoples Day weekend, and then in February on President's Day weekend. So those are the 3 times that we have a Saturday and Sunday very intensive workshop. And the following 2 questions come from one of the attendees of that rather wonderful workshop that we just had. So let me look at this and read out the questions to you. And they're almost as new to me as they're going to be to you hearing them. The queries: Can you address emotional blocks as they relate to the physical body and past, gaining awareness? Not quite sure what that means. How one might begin to work to clear the tension that, say, in the hips or what have you, to make way for the flowing of emotion. Okay, there's one question. The second question is as follows. 2, how Alba emoting, emotional effector patterns at Alba technique, can work in tandem with allowing impulses as an actor. What I mean is that we are so trained in our real life to put the brakes on most impulses and real emotions. How might Alba allow one to be more free, in caps, to act on or allow impulses on the stage? And of course, my screen just went dark. There we are. I think we will. These are very actor-specific questions. Many of you are not actors. This is all the feels, not acting 101 with Alba technique. So I have to make a quick decision right now whether I'm going to answer these questions. But I see that we do have an attendee who's not an actor and finds it fascinating. So I will go ahead and I will try to answer the second question. So repeating the question a little more rapidly so that I get it in my own head. How can I work in tandem with allowing impulses as an actor? What I mean is we're so trained in real life to put the brakes on most impulses and real emotions. How might Alba work allow one to be more free to act on or allow impulses on the stage? Well, I'm surprised that this querent asked that question because she just spent 2 really intense days with me last Saturday and Sunday. And it seems to me that the answer to that should be obvious. So I'm struggling with this a little bit, querent. So I'm going to answer this not so much for her, but for those of you who have never worked with me before in any event, weekend, privately, or on a Zoom Qigong or a Zoom somatic sensing. The short answer, and I'm not being glib about this, is if you want, querent, to become more free to act on your impulses, then you need to convince we need to convince your body, mind, your primitive self, the most primitive part of your brain, or the third most primitive part of your brain, because the first most primitive in this context would be the autonomic nervous system. So that like even when you're in a coma, you will continue to breathe, you will continue to excrete urine and etc. So that's the autonomic nervous system. Above that would be the parasympathetic nervous system. And above that, in terms of development in a human person, would be the limbic system, which deals with our emotions. That's a complicated system too. We do not understand it, but that system releases biochemicals, and the biochemicals that are released allow us to know in our bodies what we are feeling. And actors in the 20th century were taught how to use the left brain, the critical brain, which is a whole different, losing my words, use your words, Pat, is a further development. So, the prefrontal cortex, they say the age of reason, 7 years old. So prior to 7 years old, you don't have impulse control. She asks about impulses. You don't have impulse control. You don't really have impulse control in the development of the neurosystem until you're about 25 years old. And I'm beginning to wonder in this generation whether it's not in some persons doesn't really happen between the ages of 28 and maybe about 31. I think it does for some. It's very interesting, and whether that is, we could posit lots of reasons for that, but I don't know what they are in terms of human brain development. Why this current generation is having impulse control development kind of gets situated later in life, but it seems to be between 28 and 31 years old, where in my generation, as all the car rental companies knew, it was 25 for men and 21, 22 for women. So very, very interesting. But the impulse control then is not a simple question. The querent is asked as an actor. How do I get to be able to have impulse control? This is not easy, as you can tell by all of this preamble, as a question to answer for her. The entire 20th century in acting training was attempting to get at this. How do we get actors to be able to be, as we used to say, in the moment? So that when you're on stage or on screen, you are able to react. There was a famous book by Uta Hagen called Acting is Reacting. And while Uta Hagen was brilliant, and that is a brilliant and wonderful book, we're now knowing that it's way more than that, and it's different from that. And there are a lot of problems with that as a statement, neurologically speaking, problems with that as a statement. So the querent wants to get impulse control, which is a paradox, on stage, because you've got to be in the moment and you've got to be able to react to what's happening in the moment, and yet you have used your left brain and a lot of rehearsals, and you have a literary goal to meet, because you are not just acting as yourself. If Pat is in a play, Pat is a character. If Pat is on screen, Pat is a character. Pat is in Pat's body, but Pat is not just Patricia Angelin. There's more. There's more of a moreness in that. So the 20th century tried to get at that by lots of different exercises. The Meisnerian exercises some of them are brilliant, and some of them just get you more stuck in your left brain. And a famous teacher named Strasberg, Adler. The group theater, to give you quick theater history, the group theater went over to Russia for a very short time, worked with the great teacher Stanislavski for a very short time, and then typical Americans came back, got together, and did the American take on Stanislavski and Meyerhold's work. And so we got the kind of training that I received and that most actors received all through the 20th century, and even is continuing now, some of which is very tough on actors' human nervous systems. The worst offender is something called emotional substitution. And that's when the actor, in order to say cry, the actor has to cry, and like my querent asked, there's blocks to the crying. So the actor's got to cry, the actor's got to literally hit a mark for a camera, or hit a place that has been blocked on stage, and produce the desired emotional result that works for the literary construct of the story that's being told. Boy, that's a convoluted sentence. Sorry. But this is not, the question that she asked is not easy to answer, other than for me to be glib and say, you just got to work with me. You get control of your nervous system, and your body gets to know you, and your body has to learn, if we can put it that way, how to trust your body to be safe in these emotional situations, so that you can produce the physical, get the biochemicals released through using the Alba emoting emotional effector patterns, and that's purely physical. Purely, it is not psychological, unlike what all actors in my age group and still are being taught in their scene study classes, that you have to follow your impulse. You have to find the impulse, that it's not real unless it's the impulse. It's not authentic unless it drops in. And I am here to tell you it's counterintuitive, but I'm answering her question. You've got to work with me, because there's nothing else like this. And you get to the point where you know your own body so well. You're like going into that oracle at the Temple of Delphi, and you see across the lintel, know thyself. And that's the goal, Miss Actor, who's asking the question. I will give you control of your impulses through your own personal body discoveries that gives you the recovery of what you were able to do when you were under 6 months old, which is go from one emotion to another, to another, to another, to another, not adding and layering them, but dropping them in between. And by the time we get to be the age of reason and our prefrontal cortex is we can decide between good and evil, and then going on the way through until that fully develops and the two hemispheres of the brain are, the synapses that are going back and forth. I just short-circuited like the Facebook Live did today. You get the idea. The last thing I want to say in all the fields is tell people you have to come work with me. But this is so relatively new for you people as actor. But even if you are a person who is a paralegal, or in IT, or in human resources, or, fill in the blank, you can benefit from this. Even one weekend of this would help you know yourself, and in a way that does no harm. No harm, I promise you, would be done to your emotional life by working with me. It's absolutely fascinating. For people who like intellectually fascinating things, it's fun. And I promise you, young actress, who asked that question, who worked with me last weekend, we'll get you there. We'll get you there so that when you are on stage or on screen, you will be able to both do what you assessed literarily you need to do for story to the right degree, to the right intensity. You can produce it through your body if you need. You will not have to remember when your grandmother died to cry, which is so unhealthy. And we know, let's face it, we know from cognitive behavioral therapy and all the work with phobias that those blocks can be removed. They can be removed over a lot of time with a lot of work. So from an acting standpoint, in a way, if you're going to use your favorite "it makes me cry" scenario from your own past, eventually, I hate to tell you this, but it won't work. Because you will have used it over and over and over, and then just when you need it most, it will fail you. And it'll be just your first film with Scorsese or something. So to be able to get another way into your emotions and just as importantly out of them, to be able to just come out clean. It's so healthy for an actor. It's healthy for a human person. It's healthy to be able to know that you can hit the mark for 8 or 9 performances a week and that you will get authentic emotion. It'll be ever so slightly different each time because, as the Buddhists would say, you don't step into the same river twice. You've had cell turnover in your body. So that would be what I would suggest to answer that question. And I think that's enough for now. This is never meant to be an advertisement for working with me. What this is meant to be is you write me a question about what you've observed in your own feelings or in the feelings of others or a situation you're facing. It's meant to be kind of an Ann Landers with an emotional expert who's just a basically really kind person. And that I will give you some input and some practical things that you can do, to manage either your own emotions or the emotions of others in your workplace or in your home. So I hope that was helpful. I hope you will email me some more questions for next week. Next week we're supposed to be on Instagram Live. I don't know what we're going to do about the Facebook Live we promised and didn't do. Mercury is retrograde. Mwah. Bless you. Thank you so much for joining me on this slightly bumpy ride. Oh, Yves.